I used to believe that the biggest changes in life arrived with warning signs, but sometimes they begin with nothing more than one ordinary door opening at the wrong moment. On the first cool morning of October, a gentle breeze drifted across Crystal Lake, carrying the scent of pine trees and fresh coffee through the peaceful grounds of Brooks Grand Resort. Golden sunlight shimmered across the quiet water, while guests enjoyed calm walks along the shoreline, completely unaware that before the morning reached its end, two strangers would unknowingly step into a story that neither of them could ever have imagined. Noah Bennett parked his aging pickup truck in the employee lot just before 7 o'clock, as he had done nearly every weekday for the past 6 years. At 39 years old, he no longer measured success by promotions or expensive possessions. Success meant making breakfast for his 8-year-old daughter Sophie before school, remembering the extra apple slices she liked in her lunchbox, and never breaking a promise he had made to her. Before leaving home that morning, Sophie had wrapped both arms around his waist and smiled. "You're coming to my art show tonight, right?" Noah gently brushed a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear and smiled back. "I have never missed one, and I never will." Those simple words stayed with him as he stepped into the maintenance office, greeted his coworkers with his usual quiet kindness, collected the morning work orders, and prepared for another ordinary day of repairing everything from broken door locks to faulty air conditioning units. Ordinary days, however, rarely announce when they are about to become unforgettable. Just after 8 o'clock, the maintenance radio clipped to Noah's belt crackled with urgency. "Maintenance Manager Bennett, we have a possible plumbing leak reported on the executive floor. Suite 2418. Please respond immediately." Noah acknowledged the call, picked up his weathered toolbox, and headed straight toward the executive elevators. Water damage inside a luxury resort could spread quickly, and every minute mattered. When he reached the executive hallway, polished marble, floors reflected the bright autumn sunlight pouring through enormous windows overlooking the lake. Fresh flowers decorated every corner, and the peaceful silence made the hallway feel almost empty. A young concierge hurried toward him carrying an updated work order. "Housekeeping changed the room assignment after the original report," she explained. "Please use this one instead. We need you there as quickly as possible." Noah thanked her politely, accepted the revised paperwork, and walked directly toward the assigned suite. Following standard maintenance procedure, he knocked firmly on the elegant wooden door twice. "Maintenance," he called clearly. "Emergency service." Entering after a brief wait. No answer came from inside. Noah remained outside for several seconds before carefully using his master key. The door opened only slightly. Inside, Olivia Brooks had just returned from the private fitness center and was changing into business attire before a confidential inspection meeting that none of the resort employees knew she was attending. The instant Noah realized someone was inside the suite, he immediately lowered his eyes toward the floor, turned his face away, and stepped backward. "I am very sorry," he said without hesitation. "I entered the wrong room. Please accept my apology." He gently closed the door before taking another step back into the hallway, his heartbeat racing with embarrassment, but his composure never breaking. Barely 2 seconds had passed. At that exact moment, 2 resort security officers rounded the far corner of the hallway after receiving an automated executive response alert triggered by the unexpected door access. Several nearby employees stopped walking and quietly looked toward the scene. Olivia stood silently inside the suite, surprised by what had happened, but equally aware that the maintenance worker had left immediately without another glance. Neither of them knew that discreet hallway security cameras had already recorded every second of the incident, from Noah's arrival with his toolbox to his immediate retreat after recognizing the mistake. Standing calmly beside his worn toolbox while security approached, Noah had no idea that the woman behind that door was not simply another guest. She was the billionaire owner of the entire Brooks Hospitality Group, and before another sunrise arrived over Crystal Lake, one innocent misunderstanding would begin changing both of their lives forever. Ironically, the loudest judgments are often formed before the quietest truths have a chance to speak. Noah Bennett remained exactly where the security officers had politely asked him to stand, his weathered toolbox resting beside his boots while warm autumn sunlight continued pouring through the tall windows overlooking Crystal Lake. His breathing gradually slowed as he reminded himself that panic never solved misunderstandings. Years of raising Sophie alone had taught him that patience often carried more strength than hurried explanations. One of the officers approached with a calm, professional expression. "Mr. Bennett, we only need to understand exactly what happened." Noah nodded respectfully. "I receive an emergency maintenance dispatch regarding a possible plumbing leak. I was given an updated room assignment by the concierge. I knocked twice, announced that maintenance was entering for emergency service, waited several seconds without receiving a response, unlocked the door, immediately realized the room was occupied, apologized, stepped back, and closed the door." His voice remained steady from beginning to end. He added nothing dramatic and left nothing out. The second officer looked at his notes before asking another question. "Did you know who the guest was?" Noah answered honestly. "No, sir." "Did you remain inside the room?" "No, sir." "Did you attempt to return after leaving?" "No, sir." The officer thanked him before both men quietly walked away to complete their report. The entire conversation lasted less than 3 minutes. Yet inside a luxury resort, curiosity often traveled faster than facts. A pair of housekeepers exchanged uncertain looks while folding fresh linens outside another suite. 2 bell attendants lowered their voices as Noah passed through the lobby, carrying his toolbox. Even a few guests glanced toward him before continuing their conversations. Noah noticed every look, yet his expression never changed. There were still leaking faucets waiting to be repaired, heating systems scheduled for inspection, and guests depending on the resort staff to make their vacations memorable. His responsibilities had not disappeared simply because some people now viewed him differently. Meanwhile, inside a private executive suite overlooking the sparkling lake, Olivia Brooks quietly stood beside the window after finishing her morning meeting preparations. The unexpected interruption continued replaying in her thoughts. She remembered the maintenance worker immediately lowering his eyes instead of staring. She remembered hearing a sincere apology before the door gently closed. More than anything, she remembered how quickly he had chosen respect over curiosity. Her executive assistant, Lauren Mitchell, entered carrying a digital tablet containing the day's confidential agenda. Security completed their preliminary report, Lauren said. "Would you like a summary before your executive meeting?" Olivia turned away from the window. "What did the maintenance manager say?" Lauren glanced at the report. His statement matched the initial timeline. He accepted responsibility for opening the wrong room, but explained that he was responding to an emergency dispatch and left immediately after realizing someone was inside. Olivia remained thoughtful. "Did he ask to meet with me?" "No." "Did he argue with security?" "Not once." "Did he try to defend himself?" Lauren gently shook her head. "He simply answered every question and returned to work." Olivia looked back across the peaceful lake where morning sunlight danced across the calm water. Something about Noah Bennett refused to fit the assumptions that naturally followed such an awkward situation. Downstairs, Noah spent the rest of the morning repairing a loose railing beside the lakeside walking trail before helping a young family whose stroller wheel had become stuck between decorative stone pavers. He freed the wheel with a simple wrench, wished them a wonderful vacation, and quietly continued toward his next assignment. From a second-floor balcony, Olivia happened to witness the entire moment. There were no supervisors nearby, no cameras he knew about, and no opportunity for recognition. He simply helped because someone needed help. As Noah disappeared beneath the colorful maple trees lining the shoreline, Olivia found herself asking a question she had not considered before. What if the man everyone was quietly whispering about was nothing like the story they believed they already knew? The next several days settled into a peaceful rhythm across Brooks' Grand Resort as brilliant shades of crimson and gold spread through the maple trees surrounding Crystal Lake. Morning mist drifted quietly above the water while guests gathered on the outdoor terrace with steaming cups of coffee, admiring the calm beauty that made the resort famous every autumn. Noah Bennett arrived before sunrise as always, parking his aging pickup truck in the employee lot before taking a folded note from his lunchbox. Sophie had slipped it inside before school, with colorful crayons decorating the edges. It simply read, "Have a great day, Dad. I love you." Noah smiled to himself, carefully tucked the note into his shirt pocket, and began another ordinary workday. The rumors that had quietly followed him after the misunderstanding had not completely disappeared, but he refused to let them change the way he treated anyone. Shortly after breakfast service began, he noticed a young housekeeper struggling to push an overloaded supply cart across an uneven stone walkway leading toward the lakeside cottages. Without waiting to be asked, Noah set down his toolbox, steadied the cart, and helped her guide it safely to its destination. "Thank you," she said with obvious relief. Noah smiled warmly. "We all have enough work. Helping each other only makes the day lighter." He picked up his toolbox and continued walking before she could say anything more. Less than an hour later, an elderly guest accidentally dropped a small leather wallet beneath a decorative wooden bridge crossing one of the resort gardens. The man searched anxiously along the edge of the stream, while several visitors continued walking past. Noah happened to notice the situation during another repair assignment. He carefully climbed down the gentle embankment, retrieved the wallet without damaging it, brushed away a few fallen leaves, and handed it back with a friendly smile. The grateful guest immediately reached into his pocket, hoping to offer a reward, but Noah politely raised one hand. "Please keep it," he said. "Enjoy your vacation. That will be more than enough." Unknown to Noah, Olivia Brooks had witnessed the entire exchange from a second-floor balcony overlooking the gardens. She had stepped outside only to review notes before another executive meeting. Yet once again, she found herself watching the quiet maintenance manager instead. There were no executives nearby, no supervisors evaluating his performance, and no opportunity for recognition. Every act of kindness appeared completely natural, as though generosity required no audience at all. Later that afternoon, another unexpected moment quietly reshaped Olivia's thoughts. A little girl visiting the resort chased a bright yellow balloon across the courtyard until it became tangled beneath a wooden bench. Before her parents even reached her, Noah calmly knelt down, loosened the string without popping the balloon, and handed it back with a reassuring smile. The little girl hugged the balloon tightly before surprising him with an equally enthusiastic hug around his waist. Noah laughed softly, thanked her for making his afternoon brighter, and wished the family a wonderful stay. Olivia found herself smiling before she realized it. She remembered the uncomfortable morning outside the executive suite, yet every passing day seemed to reveal another quiet piece of Noah's true character. As the afternoon sun reflected across the still waters of Crystal Lake and golden leaves drifted gently through the cool breeze, Olivia began to understand something that years of business success had almost caused her to forget. Genuine character could never be measured by one unexpected moment. It revealed itself slowly through ordinary choices made when nobody important seemed to be watching, and the quiet man carrying the worn toolbox appeared to make those choices every single day. By the following Friday, autumn had settled fully around. Crystal Lake, covering the winding paths of Brooks' grand resort with a brilliant carpet of crimson and golden leaves that rustled gently beneath every passing breeze. Guests admired the peaceful scenery without realizing that one woman was beginning to see the resort through entirely different eyes. Olivia Brooks had spent years building one of the country's most respected hospitality companies by trusting facts over assumptions. Yet one quiet maintenance manager had challenged that habit without ever intending to do so. Early that afternoon, instead of reviewing financial reports before her next executive meeting, Olivia quietly walked into the Human Resources office. The director, Susan Reynolds, welcomed her into a private conference room before placing a single personnel file on the polished oak table. Olivia thanked her, opened the folder, and began reading. At first, the pages contained ordinary employment records, annual evaluations, training certifications, and maintenance schedules. Then the comments from coworkers and guests began to appear. One guest praised Noah Bennett for staying nearly an hour after his shift ended to repair a broken wheelchair for an elderly veteran. Another family wrote that Noah had carefully recovered their daughter's favorite stuffed rabbit after it had fallen behind heavy laundry equipment, refusing every offer of payment with a warm smile. There were handwritten thank you notes from employees who said Noah often volunteered for holiday shifts so parents with young children could spend Christmas morning at home. There were no disciplinary actions, no formal complaints, and no record of conflict with anyone. Susan watched Olivia quietly reading every page before speaking softly. People remember Noah because he never makes anyone feel unimportant. Olivia turned another page and paused. Attached near the back of the file was an emergency contact form listing only one person. Sophie Bennett, daughter, 8 years old, no spouse, no additional family member. Olivia looked up. He has been raising her alone. Susan nodded gently. His wife passed away several years ago after a sudden illness. He rarely speaks about it. He says, his daughter deserves a father who keeps every promise, no matter how tired he feels. Those words remained in the room long after Susan finished speaking. Olivia quietly closed the folder, thanked her, and left the office without another question. Later that afternoon, while driving toward another property inspection, she happened to pass Maple Ridge Elementary School just as families gathered outside for the annual student art exhibition. Curious, she asked her driver to slow down. Through the open entrance, she recognized Noah walking quickly across the parking lot carrying a small bouquet of bright yellow sunflowers wrapped in simple brown paper. His expression carried the quiet concern of a father hoping he had not arrived too late. The moment Sophie spotted him from inside the school lobby, her face brightened with unmistakable joy. She ran straight into his arms while carefully holding a colorful painting she had created. Noah laughed warmly, handed her the flowers, and apologized. Traffic was heavier than I expected. Sophie smiled as though nothing else mattered. You still came. Noah gently rested one hand on her shoulder. I promised you I would. Olivia remained inside the car, watching through the windshield as father and daughter walked into the school together, talking and laughing beneath the golden autumn trees. She suddenly realized that the man so many people had quietly judged because of one unfortunate misunderstanding had built his entire life around something much stronger than reputation. He had built around keeping promises. As the afternoon sunlight faded across Crystal Lake and the cool breeze carried another wave of falling leaves through the quiet town, Olivia understood that genuine greatness was rarely announced by titles or wealth. More often, it revealed itself in the ordinary moments when a father simply showed up because a little girl believed he always would. Monday morning arrived beneath a cloudless autumn sky, and the calm waters of Crystal Lake reflected the brilliant colors of the surrounding maple trees as though nothing in the world had ever been uncertain. Inside the Security Operations Center of Brooks Grand Resort, however, one unanswered question still waited quietly for its final answer. Olivia Brooks entered the room alone, carrying only a leather notebook instead of the stack of executive reports that usually accompanied her. Security Director Michael Harris greeted her respectfully before dimming the lights and activating the surveillance system. 3 large monitors illuminated the room with a soft blue glow, while digital timestamps appeared across the screens. You requested every recording connected to the executive floor from last Monday morning, Michael said. Everything has been preserved. Olivia nodded gently. Please begin from the maintenance dispatch. The first recording showed Noah Bennett leaving the maintenance office, carrying his familiar weathered toolbox immediately after receiving the emergency call. Another camera captured the concierge handing him the revised work order near the executive elevators. Every movement appeared calm, professional, and purposeful. Michael switched to the hallway camera outside the executive suite. Olivia watched silently as Noah knocked firmly twice before announcing in a clear voice, "Maintenance. Emergency service." Entering after a brief wait. The hallway remained completely silent. Noah waited exactly as company procedure required before unlocking the door. Olivia leaned forward almost without realizing it. The recording continued. The door opened only slightly. Within less than 2 seconds, Noah immediately lowered his eyes, stepped backward, apologized sincerely, and gently closed the door without looking inside again. Michael paused the video. The door remained open for approximately 1.8 seconds, he explained. We confirmed the timing using every available hallway camera. Olivia remained quiet. Continue. Another angle showed Noah already standing several feet away from the suite before the security officers even reached him. He never approached the doorway again. He never attempted another glance. He simply waited respectfully, answered every question honestly, and returned to work immediately afterward. Michael placed another report beside her. We reviewed every camera covering his route before and after the incident. Mr. Bennett went directly from the maintenance office to the assigned room and immediately continued with his scheduled repairs. There was never any inappropriate behavior. Olivia slowly exhaled, as though releasing a burden she had been carrying for days. The truth had never changed. Only her understanding of it had. She remembered Noah's calm apology, his quiet dignity, and every small act of kindness she had witnessed since then. Each memory now fit together with perfect clarity. Michael finally spoke again. Would you like us to close the investigation permanently? Olivia looked one last time at the frozen image of Noah standing respectfully outside the suite with his worn toolbox resting beside him. Yes, she answered softly. Close it. She stood and walked toward the door before stopping. Michael, please make certain that no rumor connected to this incident continues inside this resort. A person's reputation should never be shaped by assumptions when the truth has already spoken. It will be handled immediately, he replied. Olivia stepped back into the bright afternoon sunlight where guests laughed beside the lake. Children tossed colorful leaves into the air, and the peaceful rhythm of the resort continued as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet for her, everything had quietly changed. She no longer saw Noah Bennett as the maintenance manager connected to an unfortunate misunderstanding. She saw a devoted father, an honest man, and someone whose character had remained steady even when his reputation had briefly been questioned. There was only one thing left for her to do, and she knew it could not be delegated, postponed, or written into a report. Some apologies carried far more value when they came directly from the heart. Late that afternoon, the warm light of autumn settled gently across Crystal Lake, painting the quiet water with shades of gold, while a cool breeze carried the scent of pine through the open terraces of Brooks Grand Resort. Noah Bennett had just finished replacing a faulty thermostat inside one of the executive conference rooms when his maintenance radio softly crackled against his shoulder. Maintenance Manager Bennett, would you please come to the Lakeside Lounge? A guest has requested to speak with you privately. The request sounded courteous rather than urgent. Noah collected his tools, wiped his hands with a clean cloth, and made his way upstairs without giving the invitation much thought. As the elevator doors opened, he stepped into a peaceful lounge surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sparkling lake. Olivia Brooks stood quietly beside the glass, dressed in a simple navy business suit instead of the formal attire she usually wore during executive meetings. The sunlight reflected across the water behind her, making the room feel calm enough that even silence seemed welcome. Noah approached with the same respectful smile he offered every guest. Good afternoon. How may I help you today? Olivia turned toward him slowly. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. She took a gentle breath before breaking the silence. Actually, Mr. Bennett, I believe I am the one asking for your help. Noah waited patiently, giving her his full attention. Olivia folded her hands together, something she rarely did during business conversations. I reviewed every security recording from that morning, she said quietly. I reviewed the dispatch records, the maintenance logs, and every report connected to the incident. Noah listened without interrupting. Everything you told security was completely true, she continued. You followed every procedure exactly. You waited before entering. You left immediately after realizing the room was occupied. You did absolutely nothing wrong. Noah nodded gently, his expression unchanged. I believe the truth would become clear eventually, he answered in a calm voice. Olivia searched his face, almost expecting hidden frustration or disappointment, yet she found neither. "You're not upset with me?" she asked softly. Noah glanced through the window where a father and young son were feeding ducks near the lakeshore. "Being upset would not change what happened," he replied. "Life has taught me that patience usually accomplishes more than anger." Olivia lowered her eyes for a brief moment. "I owe you a sincere apology," she said. "Not because anyone asked me to, because I allowed uncertainty to remain longer than it should have." Noah smiled with quiet kindness. "You were surprised. Most people would have been." Olivia shook her head gently. "Most people in your position would have defended themselves." Noah rested one hand on the handle of his old toolbox. "The truth does not become stronger because someone repeats it louder," he said. "Sometimes the best thing we can do is continue living honestly until the truth speaks for itself." Those words settled peacefully between them, while gentle waves shimmered across Crystal Lake outside the windows. Olivia realized that after years of leading thousands of employees and making decisions worth millions of dollars, one maintenance manager had reminded her of something leadership books rarely taught. Character revealed itself most clearly through grace. She smiled warmly. "Your daughter is fortunate to have you." Noah's eyes softened immediately. "I believe I am the fortunate one," he replied. "Every morning Sophie reminds me what kind of man I want to become." Olivia looked at him with growing admiration. "I hope someday I have the chance to know both of you better." Noah nodded politely, unaware of how important those simple words would soon become. As he picked up his weathered toolbox and quietly walked toward the elevator, Olivia remained beside the window, watching him disappear beyond the closing doors. At that moment, she understood that genuine greatness was rarely announced by wealth, titles, or influence. More often it arrived wearing worn work boots, carrying an old toolbox, and choosing grace when pride would have been much easier. The quiet days that followed unfolded with a gentle rhythm neither Noah Bennett nor Olivia Brooks had expected. The misunderstanding that had once stood between them slowly disappeared, replaced by conversations that began with ordinary topics and somehow always ended with both of them leaving with lighter hearts. Olivia continued visiting different corners of Brooks' Grand Resort without revealing that she owned every building surrounding Crystal Lake. She preferred being treated as an ordinary guest rather than a powerful executive, and no one never questioned why she seemed to appreciate the simple places more than the luxurious ones. One cool Saturday morning, Noah was repairing a weathered wooden bench overlooking the lake after several windy days had loosened its supports. Olivia approached carrying 2 paper cups of freshly brewed coffee from the small lakeside cafe. "I thought you might enjoy a short break," she said with a gentle smile. Noah accepted 1 cup with quiet gratitude. "Thank you. That is very thoughtful." They sat together while gentle ripples moved across the lake and a pair of white swans drifted peacefully through the morning mist. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence felt comfortable rather than awkward. Olivia finally smiled toward the water. "Most people become nervous when nobody is talking." Noah watched the swans glide across the surface. "Sometimes silence says the things that words never can." Olivia nodded, allowing the peaceful moment to settle naturally between them. A few days later, she discovered that one tire on her rental sedan had gone completely flat near the resort gardens. Before she reached for roadside assistance, Noah happened to pass by with his toolbox after completing another maintenance request. He smiled when he noticed the problem. "Looks like your afternoon changed its plans." Olivia laughed softly. Apparently it did. Noah calmly replaced the tire, while explaining each step with the patience of someone who genuinely enjoyed helping others learn. When everything was finished, Olivia reached in her purse, hoping to thank him properly. Noah gently raised one hand. "Please do not." She looked at him with surprise. "You just saved me a great deal of time." Noah smiled warmly. "Neighbors help neighbors. Not everything valuable needs a price." Olivia quietly returned her wallet to her purse. Realizing this was another moment that perfectly reflected the man she had come to admire. Later that week, Noah invited her to Sophie's annual Harvest Festival at Maple Ridge Elementary School. "She will be singing with her class," he explained. "She would enjoy having another friendly face cheering for her. Olivia accepted immediately, choosing simple jeans, a cream sweater, and comfortable boots instead of designer clothing. Noah introduced her only as his friend Olivia, and Sophie welcomed her with the open-hearted warmth that only children possess. "Daddy says you like peaceful places," Sophie said with a bright smile. Olivia laughed gently. "He knows me surprisingly well." Together they walked through rows of handmade decorations, pumpkin displays, apple pies, and colorful autumn crafts while children laughed beneath strings of glowing lights. They applauded every young performer as though each child were standing on the grandest stage in the country. When the evening ended and families slowly returned to their cars beneath the golden streetlights, Sophie instinctively slipped one small hand into Noah's and the other into Olivia's. Neither adult mentioned the gesture. They simply continued walking together beneath the cool autumn sky, while colorful leaves drifted quietly around them. In that peaceful moment, they no longer felt like strangers connected by an unfortunate misunderstanding. They felt like three hearts slowly discovering that the greatest families are often built not through perfect plans, but through unexpected kindness, quiet trust, and the simple courage to let someone gently become part of your ordinary life. The first week of November arrived beneath a brilliant blue sky, and Brooks Grand Resort prepared for its annual leadership conference with quiet precision. Fresh white lilies decorated the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers reflected warm golden light across polished floors, and employees from every property within Brooks Hospitality Group filled the spacious hall with respectful conversation. Noah Bennett had no intention of attending the event. His assignment that morning was simply to repair one of the ballroom projection systems after an unexpected electrical failure threatened to delay the conference. Carrying his familiar weathered toolbox, he carefully replaced a damaged power module, tested every screen twice, and quietly packed his equipment. The event coordinator smiled with relief. "Everything is working perfectly now." "Thank you." Noah returned the smile. "I'm glad I could help." She hesitated before adding, "You are welcome to stay for the opening ceremony if you have a few minutes." The company usually recognizes outstanding employees during the conference. Noah shook his head politely. "I still have maintenance requests waiting." Just as he reached the ballroom doors, the lights dimmed and soft instrumental music filled the room. The master of ceremonies stepped confidently onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder, chairwoman, and chief executive officer of Brooks Hospitality Group." Every conversation immediately stopped. Hundreds of employees rose to their feet in respectful applause. Noah turned almost absent-mindedly toward the stage, expecting to see a business leader he had never met before. The spotlight illuminated the entrance, and his footsteps froze. Olivia Brooks walked gracefully across the stage, wearing an elegant ivory business suit, her calm confidence filling the enormous ballroom without a single unnecessary gesture. Noah stared in complete disbelief. The woman who had shared coffee beside Crystal Lake, laughed with Sophie during the Harvest Festival, accepted his help without revealing her status, and spoken with such warmth about ordinary life now stood before hundreds of employees as the owner of the entire company. Olivia's eyes briefly found Noah standing near the ballroom entrance, and a gentle smile crossed her face before she stepped behind the podium. "Good morning, everyone," she began. Her voice carried warmth instead of distance. "Each year we gather to celebrate growth, innovation, and financial success. Those achievements matter, but today I would rather begin by honoring something even more important: character." The ballroom became perfectly still. Olivia continued, "Several weeks ago, I met an employee whose quiet integrity reminded me that the strongest people rarely feel the need to defend themselves. They simply continue doing what is right until the truth speaks for them." Noah lowered his eyes, realizing she was speaking about him without mentioning his name. Olivia looked toward the back of the ballroom. "Mr. Noah Bennett, would you please join me on stage?" A pathway naturally opened as employees stepped aside, watching the maintenance manager slowly walk forward with the same worn toolbox he carried every day. When he reached the stage, Olivia extended her hand with sincere respect. Noah accepted it with humble gratitude. Turning toward the audience once again, Olivia smiled gently. This man reminded me that leadership is never defined by titles, offices, or wealth. Leadership begins with humility, compassion, and the courage to choose dignity even when no one seems willing to believe you. The applause echoed throughout the ballroom, yet Noah hardly noticed it. In one unforgettable moment, every quiet conversation beside the lake, every thoughtful smile, every unexpected meeting, and every unanswered question suddenly made perfect sense. Olivia had never been an ordinary guest. She had simply wanted someone to know her heart before discovering the extraordinary responsibility she carried behind her name. The standing ovation inside the grand ballroom continued for several long moments. Yet Noah Bennett wished only to return quietly to the maintenance department and finish the work he had left behind. Standing beside Olivia Brooks, with his weathered toolbox resting near his feet, he looked far more comfortable in silence than beneath the admiration of hundreds of employees. When the applause finally faded, Olivia stepped back to the podium with a warm smile that reflected gratitude rather than authority. "There is one more announcement I would like to make," she said. "Today, Brooks Hospitality Group is creating a new leadership position. This role is not about managing buildings or increasing profits. It is about protecting the culture that reminds every guest and every employee that respect is the foundation of true hospitality. It requires character before experience and integrity before titles." She turned toward Noah with sincere appreciation. "Mr. Bennett, I would be honored if you would become our first director of guest experience and employee care." The ballroom erupted into applause once again, but Noah remained thoughtful. He looked at Olivia before answering with complete honesty. "I'm deeply grateful for your confidence, but I have never dreamed of becoming an executive." Olivia nodded gently. "That is exactly why you belong in this position. You have already been leading people for years without asking anyone to notice." Noah smiled quietly as he thought about Sophie waiting for him at home and every promise he had made to raise her with kindness instead of bitterness. Finally, he nodded. "If accepting this responsibility allows me to continue serving people with the same values that brought me here, then I would be honored to accept." The months that followed transformed Brooks' Grand Resort in ways no marketing campaign ever could. Guests returned year after year because they felt genuinely welcomed. Employees discovered that every voice mattered, whether they worked in housekeeping, landscaping, maintenance, or the executive offices. Olivia continued walking the lakeside paths early each morning without announcing her arrival, and more often than not, Noah joined her before the resort awakened for another day. Their conversations rarely centered on business. Instead, they spoke about Sophie's school projects, favorite books, changing seasons, and the quiet beauty of ordinary life. As winter settled across Crystal Lake, fresh snow covered the trees and rooftops with a peaceful blanket of white. A few days before Christmas, Olivia arrived at Noah's modest home carrying a tin of homemade sugar cookies that she admitted were far from perfect. Sophie opened the front door before Noah could reach it and immediately smiled with excitement. "Olivia is here." The little house glowed with warmth from a stone fireplace, while a modest Christmas tree displayed handmade ornaments collected over many years. Fresh cinnamon filled the air as hot chocolate rested on the kitchen table beside wrapped presents and freshly baked cookies. Throughout the evening, they laughed together while decorating cookies with colorful icing and listening to classic holiday songs. Nothing about the home reflected extraordinary wealth, yet everything reflected extraordinary love. Later that evening, as snow drifted gently beyond the windows and the fire crackled softly in the background, Sophie climbed onto the sofa between Noah and Olivia. She looked at her father first, then at Olivia, before speaking in a quiet voice. "May I ask you something?" Olivia smiled warmly. "Of course." Sophie reached for Olivia's hand. "If someday my heart is ready, would it make you happy if I called you Mom?" The room became perfectly still. Tears quietly filled Olivia's eyes as she looked toward Noah. He smiled with peaceful gratitude and gently placed his hand over both of theirs. Olivia squeezed Sophie's little hand with all the tenderness in her heart. "Sweetheart," she whispered, "if that day ever comes, I will spend every day trying to deserve that beautiful gift." Sophie leaned forward and embraced her tightly, while Noah watched the two people he loved most become a family in the quietest and most meaningful way imaginable. Outside, the snow continued falling across Crystal Lake, covering the world in peaceful white. Inside that small home, forgiveness had become trust, respect had become love, and one simple misunderstanding had quietly opened the door to a future built not by chance, but by grace, dignity, faithful promises, and hearts willing to believe the very best in one another.